Hello, everyone. Let me see. Thanks for joining us. Um, we'll give it a. I see people have been joining already. Let me give it a couple more minutes to see if there's anyone joining. For those of you who actually participated, can you see that? Can you see the screen? Okay, I'm sharing one of my presentation. If you can see that, please write that on the chat if you can. That'd be fantastic. And then whenever you have questions, there's a Q&A tab that you can use, and then I'll make sure to address all of those questions as well. If you can hear me, can anyone write that on chat to make sure that you can hear me okay, and then um, that you can see the slide that I'm sharing. And then, yeah, now it's assuming that this is okay. Someone wrote something. Awesome. So Emily can hear me fine. All right, cool. I think now it's 4:02 my time in San Diego, California. So we'll get this started. Thank you everyone for joining. My name is Hansel Hong. I'm CEO of Robolink. We teach students how to do coding with the robots as a medium. So to essentially to get into to introduce about myself, just as a disclaimer, I'm not a professional college counselor. But we actually had a recent experience with some students that we've been doing some college counseling, and then we were fortunate to send some of students to get into top engineering schools. And then I wanted to share some of those experience that we had with you guys. So by day job, I run robotics company, robotics education company, and one of the media, Mashable, actually selected me as next 5 robotics innovators. So I'm trying to live up to that expectation right now. I graduated from UC San Diego here in California. I'm actually not an engineer. So one of the reasons why I found Robolink, our educational robotics company, was so that we can actually have more students to join this like fun STEM and engineering field. And I've been doing this for 8 years. And with our team here in San Diego, we've been actually running after school programs and at our own learning centers, and also at after school programs near in different schools in San Diego. And past 8 years, we've been actually teaching over 10,000 students. And to talk about a little bit more about what our company's been doing, we actually make this robotics kits. So CodeDrone is a drone kit that you can actually learn how to do program it. So once you program, then drone will be flying and doing interesting things. And Rocket Smart is the robotics kit where you can make 11 different configurations of the robots. And we provide all of the curriculum so that you can learn how to build and program robots. And our latest one, her name is Zumi, and she's a self-driving car that teaches AI to students. And this is a product that we actually won Best of Innovation Award from CES, which is the largest tech conference in the world. And we were fortunate to get the Best of Innovation Award with this kid Zumi last year. And it's pretty big honor for a small company like us. We were competing against big corporations like Intel and DJI. So this is something that we're proud of using. And then what I mean by teaching AI is there's a lot of different AIs that we use already. Like everyone uses facial detection with your iPhones or your smartphones. or some of the cars out there are doing some decision making for self-driving car, and then we're trying to get students step closer to those technologies so that they can use it. And within our product, we teach students with the hardware that they have with the robotics kits, and then everyone uses software so that they can program it using block coding or Python. And then all of our team provides curriculum for those. And so these are the main business that our company has been doing. So we naturally have a lot of engineers, and then we have educators. And then our team, essentially, when we got this request to do college counseling for engineering schools, these like fantastic team members were actually giving hands-on lessons for students, and then we essentially developed that into extracurricular so that we can make our students stand out from engineering applications. So we got covered from a lot of different medias, and then we got different awards, including the CES awards that we got. And how we started was about 8 years ago in 2012. We started as an after-school program. So we had a prototype that we are using so that we can teach students concept of robotics and coding. And students were going to different schools, and students were learning the basics of robotics and coding. And back then, especially like coding education or robotics education was something that's not really commonly done. So we've been getting fantastic results from it. So these are like other examples of like us going to schools. On top right side, some of the students wanted to make a swimming robot with us, which may not be the best example, but we got excited and then ended up making it work, swimming with the styrofoam underneath the robots. So we've been having a lot of fun with the students. And if you notice, like a lot of students that we've been teaching was elementary and middle school students, including Scott, that I'll be showing. But essentially all of the students, they grew up and then they became high school, and then naturally, because we've been teaching the students for years, parents were asking us if we can actually run engineering, if we can help the students out with the engineering school essays and their applications, and that's how we got into it. So Scott, as an example, this might be really one of the good stories that you can see how to make like robotics and coding as an extracurricular that will be supporting your college. So Scott actually came in when he was a sixth grader, and then he loved Lego when he was elementary school, and then he started getting into robotics, but he had his mom was working in biology field, his dad was working in finance field. So they couldn't help much, and then essentially that's how Scott came into us. And then essentially we've been teaching Scott with some of our product, and then we started having him participated in more of the national scale robotics competition. And when he became 8th grader, his team actually won the robotics world championship for one of the 2 largest robotics competition called VEX. Like for someone like Scott, okay, it became hobby as a Lego building, and then he started learning about concept of robots and coding. And then he actually won one of the biggest robotics competition when he was in middle school, and that now he wants to go to Carnegie Mellon University. So those are like some of the stories that you can actually make robotics as the extracurricular, and then I'll share more examples as well. So because we've been teaching a lot of students, we were fortunate to actually send our students to some of the top engineering schools in the nation. So these schools are very, top of the level. And then, past couple of years, we've been sending our students to, these are the schools that our students got accepted. And then they ended up attending some of these schools, which I'm very proud of. So one of the things these days, like getting into engineering school is really hard. In general, getting into college it became harder compared to like my time and maybe even before. It's becoming harder and harder. So I grabbed some of the headlines for the headlines about these like admissions and things like that. So UCLA, one of their headline for that was, okay, getting into UCLA is hard, but even like these majors are even harder. And then they were, engineering was like one of the majors that they listed, nursing was another one. But UCLA, their general acceptance rate is about 14%, while some of the engineering programs, such as computer engineering at 6% last year, or aerospace engineering 7%. So essentially, it's like maybe like twice harder to get into if you're trying to specifically get into UCLA with engineering schools. And another like articles that I found was like some of these schools having 5% of acceptance rate, or like Cal Poly, San Luis Obispo, they actually turned away, over 10,000 students who have 4.0 GPAs, which was like big surprise to me. And Cal Poly SLO actually has a very good engineering program. And then Cal Poly is like one of the schools that actually shares a little bit more details, stats of the acceptance rate for engineering or by majors. And then if you look at their trend, over the time, the acceptance rate was getting lower and lower, and then it was being competitive. But around 2018 was when it has a surge of applicants, and excuse me, and then acceptance rate dropped like dramatically from to about 22% from 2018. So before, it was like ranging from somewhere around 35%, which I'm showing on the slide as well. But from 2018, it became a lot more harder to get into. And then after 2018, it was staying around that level. So these are happening in some other prestigious schools as well. And then engineering schools are becoming harder. And some people call it that this is the new medical school. So how do we get into top engineering school? That's why you guys are here. And first part is basics and foundations. Firstly, you need really good GPAs and good standard testing scores. This is the baseline of what prestigious schools are looking for, so that the students can actually follow with their education that they are offering. This is not the part that, as for us, something that we don't focus too much. I think this is what students have to do. But in order to, if I get into a little bit more specifics into it, like GPA is important, and then a lot of people in general, junior and senior first semester of senior is more important, and followed by sophomore and freshman. And in terms of SAT or ACT, so these days you can actually take both SAT or ACT. It doesn't matter as much. Probably one of the rule of thumb that you can do is students, when they are about to take the standard testing, or when they're preparing for it, when they're sophomore or things like that, then you can probably take practice tests and then see which one you score better. Generally, students tends to get like relative score whether you're taking SAT or ACT. But if you're getting significantly better score from one or another, then I would go with that. Also, in terms of SAT 2s, some engineering schools are specifically asking you to take one math SAT 2 and then one science SAT 2s. Most common combination that I've been seeing is taking math 2 and then physics. So these were something that a lot of engineering schools required as a basis. So probably those are going to be good choices. But if you can score better on some other testing, then I think it will be okay. But you gotta be sure for the schools that you're applying, there's any restriction that they have, or any requirement that they have, then you probably want to take those, you probably want to meet those requirements as well, such as the one math and one science requirement that I was mentioning. And then a lot of parents actually ask us about what kind of courses that they should be taking as well. Um, Usually, students who apply for these like top schools, they take as much as APs as possible. But sometimes you actually have to make a choice. So like one of the examples that I put it out here is, okay, do I take, if I need to make a choice, do I take applied science and engineering or advanced physics? Um, when I first looked at it, I was like, okay, they're applying for engineering school. Probably applied science and engineering makes sense more. But after talking to college admissions, most of college admissions still prefer having the core subject done if you have to choose the subject. In this case, advanced physics would be core subject and applied science and engineering is not. So if you have to make choices, then probably know what colleges are looking for. And then some depends on what high school that the students go to. Sometimes you actually make a decision. Do I take these courses at my high school, or do I take it in local community colleges? Very complicated topic, and then this is something that we actually talk a lot with the students that we talk to. But you see, as an example, there's a website called Hero, where you can actually check whether the school that you're applying is accepting the local college community colleges courses. So you can actually research that on that website, and then to see if you can apply it. So you can, once you actually have those information, then you probably need to come talk to your high school to see if you can take those courses in local high school. And then, if you have a lot of different, college courses on top of your high school load, and then if you're scoring well, then that'd be definitely a plus. But very customized thing. And then whether you want to actually apply for private colleges in East Coast or West Coast or like UCs, these all differs and then depends on your high school situation. So it's a little bit complicated topic. So after the SATs or after GPA and SAT, like standard testing, the most important things are essays and extracurricular. And then the reason I put this together is because they tie together when you're submitting the applications. Extracurriculars, usually they have a section where you can actually put awards or certifications and things like that. So that if you have one and then if you made great progress with your extracurricular curriculars, then please post it on the application. But how we've been actually tying those together is for students who's been doing robotics project from elementary school, middle school, and high school. We made that extracurricular showing on the essay so that they can get those. For example, one of the students who got into Carnegie Mellon University, first of all, it was she. So engineering schools usually have somewhere around 17 to 23% female students. So there was one advantage that she had. But another thing that she also had was she was doing a lot of different engineering projects and then art projects. And then when we actually taught her how to do CAD, and then she ended up participating as an intern to create a shell together for Zoomy that I showed earlier. So she was like learning CAD from our instructors who made those products. And then she essentially participated in creating this product which won the Best of Innovation Award. So her extracurricular activity that she's been doing became something that actually was like recognized in the industry. And then CMU, they are looking for a lot of students just getting into self-driving car and things like that. And then the timing and her stories and everything were working really well for CMU, which is one of the reasons why she got into Carnegie Mellon University. There's, like this is very customized things. So it really depends on the students. And many times, so usually colleges don't even look at the activities that students been doing prior to high school. But I personally think it's important to do this extracurricular from elementary or middle school for two reasons. One, when students are actually learning those hard skills in elementary and middle school, then you can actually carry those hard skills over to high school and then do something amazing during that time rather than finding your interest during that time. And two, usually you can actually talk about those things that you've been doing for a long time in essays. When I was third grader, when I was second, blah, 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 colleges wouldn't care about, okay, I got this robotics championship when I was second grade, but you can actually put those into essays. So I think it's really good to do early start. And when students these days, they're extremely busy. So what I emphasize all the time is choose quality over quantity. If you have 10 mediocre activities, probably that's not going to make you stand out just because you have a lot of numbers. I'd rather focus on doing 3 things that's going to make you extremely stand out. So what would be mediocre activities like? It depends on like the goal that you're trying to get into. But kind of talking about average students, maybe if you're a bench warmer and tennis team for 4 years, probably that's not going to impress anyone. If you've been volunteering, but something easy that anyone can do if you spend time, probably that's not going to be impressing anyone. But if you are volunteering something, going back to the student who got into Carnegie Mellon University, she was volunteering for someone who couldn't, who are having mental issues, and then she was teaching them with her art skills and with her coding skills. She was actually educating them at her church that she she was volunteering, and that after she did that, we had tons of things that we could actually put it into her essays. And then when she was doing interview with her professor at the admissions, she had tons of things that she could talk about. So maybe those are something, same volunteering, but something that can make you stand out more, something with more purpose. Also, once like students have good GPAs, good SAT scores, good essays, and extracurriculars, another thing that you can send out is stellar letter of recommendations. Usually, engineering schools require you to, or they prefer you to have a letter of recommendation from your teachers. And it would be better if you can get it from STEM teachers, science, math, or engineering teachers that you have. So I would say, get a recommendation from one of the STEM teachers who who knows you pretty well and who can make a really good, fantastic letter of recommendations. And one of our students who did ROTC, he's been actually doing it for all 4 years, and then he's been interacting with some of the high-ranking officials and things like that, and he was applying for engineering schools with the ROTC. So once he got some of the letter of recommendations from those highly ranked officials, I think that was very effective as well. So this is very, very important topic, something that we actually spend a lot of time with. initially, when students comes to us, we create a list of colleges that they will be applying. Usually, students these days they apply somewhere around 15 to 20 schools here in San Diego who are applying for top schools. Um, and it's really important to choose that one card that you have for early decision. Um, it varies between colleges, but some colleges, they accept 50% of their enrollment from early decision. So when we're talking about some of these colleges getting 5% acceptance, 7% acceptance, 14% acceptance versus 50% of your acceptance comes, or 50% of the pool gets accepted to the school, is an easy math. So before, everyone was using this early decision card for your dream school. Okay, I want to go to MIT, I want to go to Harvard, I want to go to Caltech. And like these are some of the schools that you would use early decision for, like top school. But my recommendation is actually slightly different. If you really want to do it, then there's nothing I can stop. But if we take a look at it strategically, realistically, like what chances do you have of getting into MIT? How do we define it? First, like look at SAT scores, their GPAs, and then like look at like my extracurricular letter of recommendation. If I really feel like I can get into MIT, then go for it. But if not, then maybe you can apply to early decision to your top 2 or third or even 5th colleges that you want to get into. It depends on students' personality too of making that decisions. But as long as students are comfortable with applying for those schools and by raising your acceptance chance higher, then I think it's really good strategy. The students that I was talking about for Carnegie Mellon, Carnegie Mellon was her second top choice, but she ended up applying for there as an early decision. And then I think it was both of us thinks it was really good decision that we made, and she's really happy at CMU. So something to think about. There's only one chance for early decision, and acceptance rate is extremely higher than regular decisions. So for today, I wanted to make it a little bit more general. So these are all the things that I have. There's a lot of different custom things that we do, but it doesn't apply for everyone. So I wanted to just leave it open for Q&A. So if you have any question, there's 2 sections. You can simply put it on chat. I'm reading that right now. Or there's a Q&A feature on there. And once you put it in, I'll read the question and then I'll answer all of your questions as well. And for those of you who couldn't make it, by the way, I recorded all the, I'm recording all the sessions, so I'll make sure to share this link with everyone who attended and who couldn't attend as well. So yeah, if there's any questions, let me know, and then I'll probably open up for a couple questions so that I can answer your questions. Okay, so there's one question, and the question is, does sports and robotics make a good extracurricular? And so I'm gonna answer it in 2 ways. Yeah, sports and robotics will make a good extracurricular. Both of them depends on what kind of sports or what kind of robotics extracurricular activities that you do. Sometimes they take a lot of, like extremely a lot of times. So students have to make a choice whether you want to actually do both, whether you want to do one. But if you can manage to do both really well, then I think it'll make a good extracurricular portfolio. One thing that I want to mention is something that I've been hearing from college admissions. that if you're actually applying for top engineering schools, what they are saying is, okay, now everyone's doing FIRST robotics. So FIRST robotics is probably the top robotics activities that students do. But they are saying, okay, everyone's doing FIRST robotics. So that doesn't make you stand out. And I kind of agree with it. So unless you can actually get crucial role from your first robotics team, like let's say, oh yeah, I was a head programmer for my robotics team, and I was a captain for my robotics team, or like some of the significant role. And then if your team actually makes like some good result from it, um, or maybe even like make some interesting volunteer work out of it, even though your team didn't do well. um, if there's like very clear picture that you can do, then I recommend first. But usually first takes, for someone who's very serious, some students spend like 40-50 hours per week on during those seasons, and then that's a lot of time. So it it's depends on the situation, and I would recommend to a certain students who can handle it. For certain students, I might not recommend it. What our students has been doing instead, which may work or may not work, is one of the students who got into USC. So what he did was he actually put together blog, and then something that the admissions can actually easily see it in one snapshot. And then he listed, like he essentially listed like his engineering notebook, and then how he used that as a volunteering, and then how he was actually like doing some like teaching out of it, and then he was actually getting paid, and then he donated all those money to good neighbors. And then he made all of those information on the blog that he was managing, and then he shared those URLs with the college admissions. This one depends on where you're applying. It may not be the best choice, especially something like public universities like UCs. They might not take a look at it at all. But those are something that he's been doing, and I don't think he nearly spent as much as time compared to some of students who participate first. But there was something that was like definitely differentiating him and making him stand out from other applicants. And if you are trying to become more strategic about it, probably like students can actually think about these different activities. And our students were fortunate to get like some of the help from our instructors, but I'm pretty sure students can help from their engineering coach, robotics coach, or some of the other people that they know to, if this is the path that they choose to. Any other questions? I'm glad there's like people joining from different places. There's one from Hawaii. Awesome. Okay. So if you have any questions, you can always shoot me an email. My name is Hansel, and my email address is hansel@robolink.com. I'm sharing it on the slide so that you can take a look at it as well. So you can shoot me an email. You can just simply send an email to info@robolink.com and then just address it to me as well. I would be happy to answer any questions, and thank you very much for joining today.